Let's talk about a fantasy that many women have but few ever dare to speak aloud. It's often considered the last great sexual taboo for straight women. The idea of seeing your husband or long-term partner with another woman. This concept, sometimes called hot husbanding or candleism, can feel deeply counterintuitive. After all, aren't we conditioned to guard our partners fiercely, to see any outside interest as a threat? But what if this fantasy isn't about a lack of love? What if, for some women, it's actually a powerful and complex expression of desire, trust, and intimacy? Hot husbanding is the term used to describe a scenario where a woman is sexually aroused by the thought or act of her male partner being intimate with someone else, often while she watches. This isn't about wanting to end the relationship or feeling inadequate. So, what is happening in the brain and body that makes this seemingly risky fantasy so appealing? The answer lies in a fascinating intersection of psychology, biology, and the unique wiring of our individual desires. One of the core psychological drivers is something called compersion. This is often described as the opposite of jealousy. It's the feeling of joy or pleasure you get from seeing your partner experience happiness or pleasure, even if it's with someone else. From a scientific perspective, our brains are wired for novelty. New and exciting experiences release dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. For couples who have been together for a long time, introducing a new element can reignite that initial spark. He is no longer just the man who forgets to take out the bins. He becomes a desirable sexual being in his own right. Finally, there's the powerful dynamic of control and surrender. While it may seem like she is surrendering control, in many scenarios, the woman is actually the one orchestrating the entire event. She sets the rules, she chooses the other person, and she decides when and how it happens. This position of power can be an enormous turn-on. It flips traditional gender scripts on their head, placing her in the role of the director of her own erotic movie. One of the most confusing yet compelling aspects of hot husbanding is its relationship with jealousy. We're taught that jealousy is a purely negative emotion, but what if a small, manageable dose of it could actually fuel desire? The flicker of fear that you might lose your partner can trigger a primal, possessive instinct. It reminds you of their value and can reignite a passion that may have become comfortable and dormant. This isn't the soul-crushing jealousy of true insecurity, but rather a thrilling, temporary arousal spike. This connection is rooted in our biology. When we feel a sense of threat or competition, our bodies release adrenaline and noradrenaline. These are the same hormones that course through our veins during moments of intense excitement, like riding a roller coaster. This physiological response is remarkably similar to the physical state of sexual arousal. When your brain interprets this state within a sexual context, the anxiety of potential loss can be reframed as exhilarating, erotic tension. Think of it like watching a scary movie. You know you're safe in your seat, but you still allow yourself to feel the fear and suspense, which is part of the fun. In a hot husbanding scenario, the woman's security in her relationship acts as the safe seat. She knows her partner is committed to her and will be coming home to her. The reclaiming sex that follows is often described as some of the most passionate and connected experiences a couple can have. While the initial appeal might be purely sexual, many couples who explore it discover unexpected emotional benefits. One of the most significant is a profound deepening of trust. To even consider this fantasy requires a level of honesty and vulnerability that few couples ever reach. You have to trust your partner enough to share your most taboo desire. This builds a foundation of radical honesty that can strengthen every other aspect of your relationship. Another powerful emotional reward is a massive boost in self-confidence for the woman. In a world that often pits women against each other, choosing to feel aroused rather than threatened by another woman is an incredibly empowering act. She knows her worth isn't diminished by another person's beauty or sexuality. Instead of feeling like she's in competition, she feels like the generous, confident queen of her domain. This can be a revolutionary shift in mindset, transforming feelings of insecurity into a source of personal power. For the man, being hot husbanded can also be incredibly validating. It communicates an immense amount of love and generosity from his partner. He feels desired not just by her, but also desired for her. This can dissolve performance anxiety and create a more relaxed, playful, and adventurous sexual dynamic between the core couple. This mutual appreciation can breathe new life into a long-term partnership, making their private world feel even more sacred and special. If you're feeling curious about this fantasy, it's essential to approach it with caution, care, and communication. The first and most important rule is radical honesty from the start. Before you even whisper the words, you need to be brutally honest with yourself. Why do you want this? Is it a genuine turn-on, or are you trying to fix a problem? Be clear about your motivations, and be prepared to discuss them openly with your partner. The second golden rule is to start small and stay in fantasy. You do not need to involve another person to begin exploring this. Start by simply talking about it. Share the fantasy verbally during a private, intimate moment. See how it feels to say the words out loud and gauge your partner's reaction. From there, you can incorporate it into roleplay, watch ethical content together, or read erotica. You may find that the fantasy is powerful enough on its own. Rule 3 is to establish unbreakable boundaries and a safe word. Discuss every detail in advance when you're both calm. What exactly is allowed? The more detailed your agreement, the safer you will both feel. Rule 4 is to plan for the aftermath with a reconnection ritual. The emotional fallout can be intense. Plan how you will care for each other afterward with cuddling, talking, and reassuring each other. Finally, Rule 5. The primary relationship always comes first. This must be the guiding principle for every decision you make. Your bond is the entire foundation. Sarah and Mark had been happily married for over a decade. They had a great relationship and a sex life that was loving and consistent. One evening, after a glass of wine, Sarah confessed a secret she'd held for years. She was incredibly turned on by the idea of watching Mark with another woman. Mark was stunned, and his initial reaction was a mix of confusion and flattery. He was worried it meant he wasn't enough for her, a fear Sarah quickly soothed. She explained it wasn't about him being lacking, but about her own complex desire. They didn't rush. For months, it was just talk. They would discuss the fantasy, exploring what turned Sarah on about it. She realized it was about being in control, of generously gifting him an experience while knowing he was completely hers. They decided to incorporate it into their own sex life. During lovemaking, Mark would describe a fictional encounter, guided by Sarah's prompts. They were both shocked at how arousing it was. After a year of exploring it in fantasy, they felt ready to consider the next step. They spent weeks creating detailed rules and chose a professional escort through a reputable agency. The night they planned for, Sarah was a bundle of nerves and excitement. She set up the room, feeling like the director of her own erotic film. When the moment came, a storm of emotions washed over her. A jolt of jealousy, a wave of seeing Mark's pleasure, and an overwhelming sense of love and power. At one point, insecurity hit harder than expected, and she said their safe word, pineapple. The experience wasn't perfect, but the aftermath was profound. It had tested their bond and proved it was unbreakable, leading to a new level of trust and passionate reconnection. Before you take a single step toward making this fantasy a reality, you must engage in serious self-reflection. The most important question to ask is why. What specific part of it appeals to you? If your motivation is rooted in a negative space, like trying to punish your partner, hoping to make them jealous destructively, or avoiding intimacy issues, then you are heading for disaster. A fantasy should be an expansion of a healthy connection, not a bandage for a broken one. A clear, positive motive is your first and most crucial safety net. Next, you need to have a state of the union conversation about your relationship. How secure do you both feel right now? Are there any lingering resentments or unresolved conflicts? Exploring a fantasy as emotionally charged as hot husbanding requires a rock-solid foundation. If there are cracks in that foundation, this experience will not fix them. It will shatter them. You both need to agree that the relationship is strong, stable, and happy before you consider introducing this level of complexity. Once you've confirmed your motives are sound and your relationship is solid, it's time to build your rulebook. Your boundaries must be crystal clear, specific, and agreed upon without pressure. Discuss everything: the location, the choice of the third person, communication levels, what happens if feelings develop. Write it all down. Finally, you must have a clear exit strategy. What happens if things go wrong? Knowing you have a plan for the worst-case scenario can give you confidence to explore the best-case scenario. After all the talking, planning, and soul-searching, the final decision comes down to a gut check. Logic and rules are essential, but you also need to listen to your deepest intuition. Sit quietly with the idea. Imagine the scenario playing out from beginning to end. Do you feel thrilling, nervous excitement, or do you feel a knot of dread in your stomach? Consider the power dynamics in your relationship. For this fantasy to work healthily, the power between you should be relatively balanced. A genuine hell yes from both people is the only acceptable starting point. In the end, our fantasies are a deeply personal part of who we are. They are a map of our desires, our fears, and our most secret selves. The fantasy of hot husbanding is no different. Bringing it into the light, even if only in conversation with your most trusted partner, is an act of incredible bravery and self-acceptance. It's a declaration that your desires are valid and worthy of exploration. Whether you choose to keep this fantasy in imagination, incorporate it into roleplay, or explore it in reality, the choice is yours. Remember, the ultimate goal of any sexual exploration should be to bring you closer together. Your relationship is the safe harbor you launch adventures from, and it's the one you must always be able to return to. So, be brave, be curious, but most of all, be honest, with yourself and with the person you love. Your sexual landscape is vast and full of potential for pleasure and intimacy. True intimacy isn't about having no secrets. It's about creating a space safe enough